Well, we as parents, it's part of our job to protect our children, right? Particularly when they're young, they're defenseless. We have to. But over time, we really need to shift our thinking from how do we keep them safe to how do we help them keep themselves safe. And people and children don't learn to handle hard things unless they handle hard things for themselves. The difficulty is that when we watch our kids struggle with a natural consequence and natural stressor, friends are unkind, don't do well in school, get cut from the soccer team, whatever, because it's so stressful to us, we want to jump in there and save the day. But when we do, we deprive children of the opportunity to feel that the solution that is within them rather than outside of them.
So
It's hard.
you're it's it's hard. And I'm just thinking about this in my own life. I have young kids that will have come home with issues with their friends,
Right.
and I really struggle with, as a parent, how do I help them in the best way? So you're saying
Hmm.
that with this particular example, I should encourage my kids to solve their own problems, to talk to their own friends without fixing it for them.
Right. What we talk about is the idea of being a consultant rather than a manager, right? Because if we jump in and take the thing over for them, they miss the opportunity to do this for themselves. This is, if you haven't read yet, Anxious Generation and Jonathan Haidt, we replaced a play-based childhood with a phone-based childhood. And one of the things about play was, and you can remember this from your childhood as I can from mine, we as children would have to go out and sort of set up the rules and figure it out how to play nicely. And if I was a complete jerk, at some point you're like, you know what, Ned, we're out of here. Here's your ball, and you'd walk away. And you watch kids because parents say, oh my gosh, they spend 40% of the time just squabbling before they even play the game. That squabbling, that's the important stuff. It's not the actual wiffle ball or softball. It's because I have to figure out how to play nicely, how to balance my wants with your wants, right? And so what we want to do as parents, we have a tendency to jump in and I'll fix this thing, or to start telling our kids what to do. And if we use language instead of a consultant, where we offer advice, we offer suggestions, and because if I start telling you what to do, you're probably not going to like it any more than when you tell me what to do. I don't like it because it feels like you're controlling me, right? And so we suggest language like, "Wow, that's pretty frustrating, huh? I got a thought on there. You want to hear my suggestion?" Simply saying, do you want to hear my suggestion? Because it gives a little bit of control to the kid. No, Dad, I really don't. Right? Okay, if you change your mind, let me know. It makes kids much more open to that help. And when we do this, we want kids to also be thinking, in a perfect world, running the scenarios in their own head. Would it help if I did this? If it help if I did that? When we do this with our kids and we offer suggestions, we can then role play them back and forth and make this more, again, like a consultant, rather than here's the solution, go try and do this. But I mean, if your kid doesn't get invited to the birthday party and everyone else got invited, where does your brain go? Typically, well, I'll call up Jessica's mom and we'll straighten this out. Understood, right? Or, well, what did you say to Ned? Did you do something that made him, why would he not invite you? You guys have been the best friends, right? Honestly, that feels like an accusation. Like, you must have screwed something up, right?
Right. What did you do?
What did you do? As opposed to, and we'll talk about with our second book is all about empathy and validation. We can talk about that a little bit later. But what you'd want to do as a consultant, you might just repeat back some. So wait, what you're telling me is she's got this big party and you didn't get invited to that? Oh my goodness, that's a lot. I wonder what we can do here. And we're trying to be supportive, but gently, not trying to tell the kid the solution all the time. So from our perspective, this idea of a consultant, there are three implications to it. We want to offer help and offer advice, not kind of ram it down kids' throats. We want kids to make their own decisions as much as they can, right? So there's a story in one of our books where a kid gets invited to this sleepover and says yes, and then later a much more exciting social event comes along. The kid wants to bail out on the less cool sleepover, right? And what do you do? And the tendency there is to tell the kid, well, no, you can't do that. You committed to this, right? Or say, okay, I'll call up, Ned's mom and figure this out. But we've taken that hard conversation, that hard decision away from the kid, and they're absolved of all responsibility. Don't want to do that, right? Our advice on this is to say, well, gosh, that's a lot. Seems to me this should be your call because these are your relationships. These are your
Right.
friendships, right? Let's talk this through, because honestly, making decisions is very complex because you're thinking about this friend, that friend, their whole social dynamic, how people are going to perceive you, the short term, the long term. I mean, it's a complicated calculation to be done. The third thing is simply that we want kids to give children every opportunity to solve their own problems as much as they can and not rush in to do it for them. Because if you go back to Rat A, when we solve things for them, we deprive them of the opportunity to solve things for themselves. And unwittingly, we can make kids feel like they're problem creators and someone else is the problem solver. And from my perspective, one of the single most helpful things to feel about yourself is that if I make a mistake, I can fix it. I know how to apologize. I know how to correct this, right? And if you know that, then you're not nearly as paralyzed by fear of what if I say the wrong thing? Oh my gosh, and I'll just stay at home and be on be on Instagram all day. Where if you know that you can make a mistake, you make a mistake and you can solve it, then making mistakes isn't the end of the world. You know how to handle them.
Absolutely. I think there's a couple things I think about in my own life where I really try to encourage my kids to be problem solvers, but it's difficult. One is when they fight amongst each other. When my kids
Mm-hmm.
fight, all I want to do is end the fight, but I
Yep.
know that I
Yep.
want them to fix it
Yep.
themselves. But
Yep.
it's very tempting to intervene and just end it because, quite frankly, it's hard to listen to.
It's stressful to you to have your kids be upset.
Correct.
And so you're wired to want to solve that 100%.
Yes. And then I also feel like if I walk away or if I don't pay enough attention, that they're feeling like I'm not helping enough. But I just have to learn to tolerate that.
Yeah, it's an interesting question because I suspect that if you ask them, hey, would you guys like my help on this? What they're going to do is try to turn you into the referee. Say, well, he did this and she did that, right? That's not the place where you want to be. You could say, I mean, you could, if you want to say, well, you guys are pretty upset about this. If you think I can be helpful, I'm happy to help you talk through this, right? And oftentimes, in my experience, just offering help, even without it being controlling, offering help and for someone to feel supported, that can actually lower stress. And if you go back to those executive functions, when their stress is lowered, we're much better able to be flexible in our thinking, to put things into perspective. You can't be empathetic when you're stressed because you're only thinking about yourself because you feel so under attack. There is really curiously a really fun thing I picked up from Bill called paradoxical therapy. This is beautiful. So paradoxical therapy, if I had gone to a couples therapy for years with my wife and it just wasn't getting any better, what the therapist might say, well, clearly there must be some reason for you guys to keep having these fights because you're having the same fight over and over and over. But golly, it's so disruptive to your family. What I want you to do, I don't want you to stop those fights because clearly they serve a need. But what I would like you to do is to schedule the time that you have them so that you can do them in a way that are less disruptive. And it tends to just explode the illusion. So I did this with my kids. This is hilarious. So I'm right here. I have a cabin upstate New York. At the end of the year, it's packing up and then a wickedly long drive home. And so I'm always like, can we get out the door? Can we get out the door? We can get out the door. We're just about to leave. My kids are 8 and 10, and they're going at it like cats and dogs. And I bust this out, and I say, guys, hold 5 seconds of your attention. I said, I need your help to just get us out the door. I can see how important this fight is to you. If you can put it on pause for 3 minutes and just make sure we've done one more sweep, I promise, as soon as we are 3 miles down the road, I will remind you to resume the fight. Okay, do you promise? And they look at me like this is the most absurd thing they've ever heard, and they bust out laughing, and that's the end of the fight. You probably can't go to the well on that over and over and over, but it is it's a fun thing to try and see what reaction you get out of your kids.
I like that. And sometimes too, when you offer a way to laugh and you make it a little bit funny, I think it also sheds light on how ridiculous some fighting is. And that lightens the mood.
Yep, and that same Sonia Lupin of the Nuts said the four forms of emergency stress relief are laughing, singing, deep breathing, and vigorous exercise. So you can also say, guys, this is great. What I want you to do, go run around the block twice and come back and pick up the conversation. I mean, I do this with my daughter. So my daughter, she is such a great human. But boy, oh boy, nobody can press my buttons like she does, and nobody presses her buttons like I do. I mean, we're thick as thieves, but it's just the way that we're wired. And so years ago, I was trying to get the case for her to go do some exercise, and however I was saying it, it was not working. And she got more and more mad, and I got more and more frustrated, thinking, but this is the solution and whatever. And at some point, you know, alleged parent, alleged adult, so storm out, kind of storm out. I'm like, I'm going for a run. I go for a run out in the woods. I get lost because I have a terrible sense of direction. I thought it was going to be like a 2 or 3 mile run. I come back 13 miles. 13 miles. I am exhausted. I'm covered with, right? It was a mess, right? And any that I had is gone because it's a 13-mile run. Here's the hilarious part. In the interim, because I took my energy away, she of her own accord had gone off and done some exercise, whatever she'd done. And so curiously, when you're sitting there with your children, if you're getting more stressed out about it, right, you may unwittingly be adding more energy, more fuel to that fire. And you can say, guys, wow, it looks like you're really going at this. If you want my help, let me know. But in the meantime, I'm going to go walk around the block a couple times and sort of clear my head, and then I'll check in with you. And is it cool if I check within you and check in on you in 15 minutes? It can change the energy.
Yeah, I'm thinking next time my kids fight with each other, I'm going to say, before I talk to you guys, I want everyone to give me 10 push-ups, 10 jumping jacks, run around the block. Then we'll talk.
I love it. I
See how
love it.
that goes.
Scientifically proven.